Alvin Plantinga's free will defense is really what killed the problem of evil. I'm pretty sure there are almost no philosophers today who take seriously the problem of evil, thanks to Alvin Plantinga's free will defense.
Contrary to what Midkiller 2 believes, Raymond Bradley has utterly destroyed Alvin Plantinga's free will defense. I will briefly articulate and summarize some of the most important refutations of it. First, let's articulate what the free will defense is. Plantinga presents his defense most persuasively in his chapter 9 of The Nature of Necessity, announcing it as the free will defense triumphant. Plantinga writes, "Put formally, you remember the free will defender's project was to show that 1. God is omniscient or omniscient, whatever you prefer, omnipotent and wholly good, is consistent with 2. There is evil. By employing the truth that a pair of propositions P and Q are jointly consistent if there is a proposition R whose conjunction with P is consistent and entails Q, what we have just seen is that 3, every essence suffers from transworld depravity, is consistent with God's omnipotence. But then it is clearly consistent with 1, so we can use it to show that 1 is consistent with 2. For consider the conjunction of 1, 3, and 4, God actualizes a world containing moral good. This conjunction is evidently consistent, but it entails 2, there is evil. Accordingly, 1 is consistent with 2, the free will defense is successful." Bradley goes on to say, "Come again? For what purports to be a rigorous form of consistency proof, this has got to be a joke. Even a first-year logic student would be warranted in describing it as bluster and bombast, to use Plantinga's unwarranted description of Richard Dawkins's The God Delusion." Bradley destroys Plantinga's free will defense by identifying a non sequitur regarding the consistency of 3 with 1. He also identifies flaws regarding the joint conditions of consistency and entailment. He identifies a non sequitur regarding the entailment condition, identifies a fatal equivocation over the scope of transworld depravity, identifies that Plantinga engaged in a modal muddle, and finally concludes that Plantinga's free will defense is a logical and moral fraud. To see this firsthand and in more depth, I will post a link in the side box to Raymond Bradley's decimation of the free will defense. Now I want to present Raymond Bradley's logical problem of evil, which looks like an utterly valid and utterly powerful disproof of God. Number 1, if God exists, he is omniscient, omnipotent, and wholly good. Hypothesis that the theist God exists. Number 2, evil occurs. Statement of the undisputed fact of evil. Number 3, if someone did not prevent the occurrence of evil despite having full knowledge in advance that it would occur if he were not to prevent it, and despite also having unlimited power to prevent it, then that person is morally culpable for its occurrence. Generalized principle of command responsibility. Number 4, by virtue of his omniscience, God knew in advance that evil would occur unless he was to prevent it. From 1, by definition of omniscience. Number 5, by virtue of his omnipotence, God had the ability to prevent the occurrence of evil. From 1, by definition of omnipotence in terms of absence of non-logical limits to God's ability. Number 6, God did not prevent the occurrence of evil. From 2, by double negation. Number 7, God had the ability to prevent evil from occurring and knew it would occur if he did not prevent it. From 4 and 5, by conjunction. Number 8, God is morally culpable for the occurrence of evil. From 3 and 7, by modus ponens. Number 9, God is not wholly good. From 8, by definition of wholly good. And number 10, God does not exist. From 1 and 9, by modus tollens.